All right, this is just going to share over to my business page. All right, looks like you're finding me, so that's wonderful. Now let me just make sure that I've got everything so I can see your comments. Hey Janie. Hi Mom, I'm glad you guys are here. Okay, it was weird last week. I didn't feel like I should be doing Facebook Live, and I just had a nice Thanksgiving, so it was relaxing. But I did miss crafting with you guys, so I'm glad to be back. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. So, oh, and thank you for sharing. Yes, definitely, if you share, make a comment so that I know. And speaking of, Pat Yarbrough is who won for 2 weeks ago, so I will send her a card pack. And yeah, I love to send out fun gifts, so just share away. So today, let's see, I have just a few things to talk about. So I have a class in person on December 20th. So that's a Monday night at 6 here at my house in Salt Lake. So if you would like to come to that, I would love to see you, and you can either text me or just click the link in my description of this video to the calendar so that you can register. Theoretically, it's all in the calendar, but I need to do some updating. And then next we have, so starting yesterday, they're doing the last chance for anything that you might want out of the July to December catalog. So a lot of things are retiring. And then there's also a lot of those retiring items that are pretty heavily discounted, so make sure you don't miss out on that. And they also at the same time released what they call a refresh of the clearance rack. So there's a bunch of fun stuff on there that you might not have seen in a while because theoretically it had retired a while ago. So anyway, I found some fun stuff. And then last but not least, I am doing a craft fair with Julie O'Neill. And that is at St. Thomas More here in Salt Lake on December 10th and December 11th. So Friday night and Saturday all day. So I would love it if you guys came out and supported us and checked out all of the fun things that we've been crafting away. And I'm actually, fingers crossed, hoping that I can get videos uploaded properly. Planning to do 5 videos for you next week, showing you how to do some of the craft projects that I've been working on. So finally, if you don't know about Paper Pumpkin, it's an all-inclusive kit. I hope that you will consider subscribing to it, or at least getting a month and seeing what you think. The one that closes on December 10th is called Lots of Pun, and so it's got all sorts of punny jokes and just any kind of card, birthdays, you can use it all through the year. So definitely one to check out. All right, so when I was talking to my friend Jane today, she suggested talking about layering, and that brought up to mind how much I struggled as a new crafter with doing layers. So I wanted to show you some different ways of incorporating layering. So here you see just a very basic card. I used Evening Evergreen for the card base, and then this is actually the Eden's, it's called Ever Eden Designer Series paper, and it is only available while supplies last this month, but it's all soft succulent and Evening Evergreen, and it's got gold on one side of each sheet, and I just wanted to glue down the gold on this page, so that's what I did. So that's where that DSP is from, and then I'm using the Poinsettia Petals and the Poinsettia dies for all of the cards I'm going to show you. So this was just a 1/2 inch strip of basic white cardstock that I stamped with the sentiment, and then here I stamped the Poinsettia in Blushing Bride on Blushing Bride cardstock and then die cut it. So aside from the fact that I'm using a die cutting machine, This is a very basic project, but it still looks beautiful and it has a lot of impact, I think. So to step that up one level, what I did was add a layer. So here you see that I've got the same Evening Evergreen card base, and then I added a layer of the Blushing Bride cardstock below the designer series paper. So this first layer on both cards is actually 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And once I finish this video, I will go ahead and post all of the dimensions and everything. Once again, it seems like something has changed, so I couldn't get the description added ahead of time. Hey Renee, thanks for joining us. I'm just getting started on the card making. So this was the first card I showed, and then this is stepped up just a little bit. So again, this layer is 4 by 5 1/4, and then the designer series paper layer is actually 3 3/4 by 5. And then otherwise it's exactly the same. Same poinsettia, same sentiment, and flagged both, which you can do with scissors. And then I did both of them, just a basic white layer on the inside with that same stamp, just to kind of decorate a little bit there. Okay, and then finally I went to the much more involved card, and this is the one I'm going to show you how to make today. So this one has, again, the same card base and the same Blushing Bride layer, so 4 by 5 1/4, the same designer series paper layer, which is 3 3/4 by 5, and then I added this layer of vellum that just adds little bit of elegance. I don't know, I just really like incorporating vellum, and I don't think about it as often as I should. And then I went through and did the individual layers of the poinsettias, just to really add some dimension and impact. And then I also added a couple of leaves and the center, and there's some Wink of Stella as well. And then for my sentiment, rather than going with white, I was afraid that would be a little stark. I don't know why it doesn't look stark on the others, but anyway, I used a strip of Blushing Bride, and it is actually 4 1/4 inches long by the 1/2 inch. So, oh, thank you. I'm glad you're liking it. So this is what we're going to make, but I just wanted you to see kind of the progression of complexity and just adding different size layers. So again, we're using this Poinsettia Petals, and then the dies are wonderful, and I have a tip for you with these. So 2 things actually, and I'll use one of the poinsettias to show you. So these dies actually are really cool because I wouldn't have even had to stamp if I didn't want to, because this piece here in the center actually embosses for us, and then the outer piece cuts. But let's see. Nope, that's not the one that I actually can see it. Somewhere I have, well, apparently it's not where I thought it was. But what I do, there we go. So these, each petal is shaped just a little bit differently, so it takes quite a bit of fiddling to figure out how it's supposed to sit on the stamped image. So if you see here, there's a little bit of permanent marker there and there, so those 2 pieces line up, and then theoretically I would have also put that, marked that spot on the stamp. I think it maybe has worn off at this point because I started using this bundle last Christmas. So that's kind of the tip for lining up easily. And then the other tip, so that your images are cut evenly, so this piece could move around, and I'll show you with this die, but the center piece, it just kind of slides around. And so by putting that piece of Post-it tape on there, or just a regular Post-it note, you keep it nice and centered, and you also can use that to stick to the top of your stamped image. And that way everything turns out just the way you want it. So that is kind of the overview of how to use these dies. So I'm just going to put the rest of them away because I actually did most of the die cutting in advance. Just, you know how to die cut. You don't need to watch me do it a million times. But let me get out all of my pieces here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is actually just stamp the card liner, this 4x5 1/4 panel that I put on the inside, just because then I want to peel off that stamp and get it out of my way, because I double mounted. So I was really glad I could find anything today to get ready for this, because with all of the projects I've been trying to crank out, I mean, you can ask my friend Julie, it is a disaster in here. So there's paper all over everywhere, and it's just interesting. I didn't know I could make that kind of a mess, because normally I'm actually a pretty neat person. But anyway, just using my very stained but clean chamois to clean my stamp here. And then I'm gonna set that down. Okay, so this I can set aside until we're ready for it. So the next tip that I have for you, and you can see these are all the pieces that I've already die cut. With all these layers, cards can get kind of heavy. And so I wanted to show you how I reduce waste and that weight just a little bit. So this is my 4x5 1/4 blushing bride layer. And what I'm going to do is take just my ink pad and my stamps and ink this up. So again, with inking, you know, you tap, tap, tap. You don't want to push down into the ink pad, because the ink is actually at the top of the pad. And so by pushing down, you make a mess, and it also pushes the ink further away from the stamp. And then I also just kind of let that stamp sit for just a second to make sure, you know, I'm putting pretty even pressure, but I want to make sure that the ink has time to transfer. So I've done that just in the center of the layer that's actually going to go on my card. So now we are going to, let's see. Yeah, that marker on the stamp really has gone away. So you can watch me fiddle. I think maybe like this. There we go. So the downside to having this die already set ready like this is that it's a little harder to see the stamped image, but that's okay, because I can tell that I am just right up. There shouldn't be any kind of halo with this die between the edge of the die and the stamp. So now I'm going to just run this through my embossing machine. So give me just a second. And so as I was doing all of that, the only thing that I really worried about was staying away from the 1/4 inch of the, you know, that's going to show. So I can set this die off to the side now. And we've got these beautiful stamped and die cut images that we'll be able to use on our card. And we can feel a little bit better about not wasting so much paper. So now I'm just going to build my card. It's really pretty straightforward from here. We've got one more stamp to do. But see, that's the gold. And it is really beautiful, but looking at it, I was like, oh, that doesn't really look like poinsettia leaves to me. So that's why I use the other side. All right. And flip this over. Now I did just put glue everywhere, so it will go through through the hole where I cut out the flower. I always feel kind of weird saying poinsettia. Like when I was growing up, I never said that I at the end, so I'm just not sure I'm actually supposed to. But okay, kind of one of those words like caulk. I never said that L growing up, so you know, that made things interesting at times. People not understanding what on earth I was talking about. Okay, so now I'm going to just flip this onto my card base, my card base, the front of it here. and smooth that down. Now, with vellum, you want to make sure that the adhesive isn't going to show through, because you can see through it. So what I do is build what's going on top of the card, on top of the vellum layer, and adhere it to the vellum, and then I'll come back to the back side of the vellum and put adhesive only where it's going to be covered. So in order to get that done, we are going to go ahead and stamp this sentiment, and it says warm wishes from our home to yours, which I feel like is really nice because it's not necessarily Christmas and it's not necessarily winter and cold, so you can just use it for more purposes than just holiday. All right, that is it for stamping. So what I'm going to do is just get some, so these are actually adhesive strips from one of the recent paper pumpkins, and I think that they work really easily. So I'm just gonna add them on here. I can hear my 3-year-old upstairs having a massive meltdown. Hey, Jane. So I'm feeling a little bad for the husband right now. So Jane, I'm glad you're here because I totally took your advice and we're learning about layering and also the poinsettia dies. So thank you. All right, so we're just going to get this put on here. And I just want to make sure that it's spaced properly. And then I'll trim, let's see, trim off where there's a little bit extra of the blushing bride strip. So I was making one of the videos today for next week and I screwed up so badly. And I didn't want to recut everything and refilm it, so yeah, it's a learning experience is how we're gonna call that. So with this, I did just want to give it a little more dimension by curling these petals up. And it doesn't take much. You can use your bone folder for this or just your fingers. And then okay, so we'll just use some liquid glue to build the flower itself. And I just offset the petals on each layer. That gives you just a really dynamic, beautiful look. There we go. Okay, and then this last one doesn't actually, oh, I'm glad you like them. Doesn't actually have any stamping on this teeny tiny little one, but it's got the same embossed look that the rest of the layers have. So we'll get that on there. And now I've got this teeny tiny little piece that you can see just the embossing to look like the center of a poinsettia. And do just a little glue here. Okay, now I just want to decide where my leaves are actually going to go. So I don't want them to be perfectly opposite each other because I feel like that just looks wrong. So I'm just going to go at like 12 and 9 roughly. And get a little bit of glue here and here for those. All right. Okay, and then the next thing that I want to do is take my Wink of Stella pen, and I am just going to add a little bit of shimmer to this Saffron panel, or layer, just to make it stand out a little bit more. And now that that's all put together, I am just going to check out how that's gonna lay there. And now I'll go back and use those adhesive strips. So get these on here. Peel off that wax paper backing. I think that's what they use. All right. Now again, since my vellum layer is not adhered yet, I just want to make sure that I've got it in the right spot before I put this poinsettia on the vellum. So now we've got that done, and we can come back here and Janie, I pulled out all the stops for this card. The only thing I really didn't do was any kind of embellishment like ribbon or rhinestones or something, which I could totally go back and add, especially to these simpler ones. I think there's a lot more open space. But by the time I had this whole poinsettia built, I really just didn't think it needed anything else. And you'll see some stampers who are very, very involved with each project and others who are super simple. And there's certainly no right or wrong way. It's just an expression of your own self. But it is nice to have an idea of how to do some of the different concepts, different something, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but there we go. So the last thing that I need to do is just trim off this little bit of my sentiment strip. So I am literally just bringing my scissors here, and this side, well, it's an awfully skinny little strip that needs to come off, but I think we can get there. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that card is all set. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this project with me, and definitely I would love to see your take on it. And if you have questions about layering, I would be happy to help answer those. And again, I will post the dimensions for all of the layers in the description of this video once I finish the actual recording. So please like and share. I would really appreciate that. And I am so grateful for you all being here. And I hope to talk to you soon and see you next week. Thanks. Bye.